London's AIM-listed Optimal Payments has reported a 40% rise in first-half revenues, but pre-tax profits dipped to £4.5 million. The weakness due in part to costs around its acquisition of the e-commerce business Skrill earlier this year. We're joined now by Leonoff, who is the President and CEO of Optimal Payments. Joel, good morning.
Morning.
I think it's really interesting to look at the consolidation that's been taking place across the sector. We've heard this morning that Wirecard has joined the bidding war for WorldPay.
Yes.
I'm curious to know just how different the skill set and the business models are of these different companies. Is it about soaking up rival players that do something different to you, or is this just about market consolidation now to get scale?
I think it's a bit of both. You know, there's certainly a consolidation going on. There's a lot of players doing a lot of things. Some of them are similar. I think for the most part, a lot of the payment companies have specific niches where they're very strong. Wirecard, as an example, is particularly strong in travel and has kind of a niche orientation there. We're very strong in gaming and online gambling and general e-commerce. But for the most part, I think size does matter, and I think we'll see a continuing consolidation. And companies now are also looking to find ways to improve their technology, add the type of features that will differentiate them from what I would consider to be commodity type processing. You don't want to be competing just on price. You want to bring some value add to the table and transcend payments.
How are valuations in this sector right now? Because people are from private equity to listed companies are trying to put a price on companies that they're buying.
Yeah, you know, it varies. I'd say a lot of the deals that are being done today are being done somewhere between, say, 15 to 20 times forward-looking EBITDA, which I think is quite healthy and quite buoyant. We just purchased Skrill, and I think we purchased them at a healthy multiple for us. On average, I'd say 15 times forward-looking EBITDA is really the barometer for valuations, which I think is indicative of a very buoyant, active market.
This is the e-wallet company that you purchased for around 1.1 billion euros. What does this bring to your business model, and how does it evolve the company?
Skrill has been one of our, I think, our major competitor in the wallet space. We have a wallet ourselves called NetTeller. Caters to general e-commerce, online gaming and online gambling, similar to Skrill. I think together we account for a very significant percentage of the total percentage of transactions in the gaming and gambling space. So for us, it's really strengthened our position, given us a lot more relevance in the space. And you know, in the world today, you have PayPal and you have a lot of others. I think we're slowly starting to appear in the rearview mirror of PayPal and look to add new technology and relevance in the general e-commerce space.
Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Why aren't they going to kill you?
Well, you know, I'm flattered that people think that we're a competitor to Apple Pay, but the reality is they're a partner of ours. We help companies accept payments online, both credit card and debit. Apple Pay is one of probably 150 different payment types that we offer for all of our customers and merchants. So they're a partner of ours. Yeah. And they kind of make the whole process a little bit less, reduce the friction, make people feel more comfortable about using, I guess, their credit cards for payments. But at the same point in time, we're an online processor. So we process online transactions. I think if I went around the table, you'd probably think of Apple Pay as taking my iPhone and making a payment. Don't really think of how does Apple Pay work in the online world. In the online world, Apple Pay is just storing your credit card or bank account information, and we call that tokenization. We've been doing that for 10 years. We do that for a lot of our merchants. So that's nothing really new, but I think the fact that people feel more comfortable with Apple Pay will just help promote more and more transactions.
Yeah, it's not a question of time. I mean, these guys have been very adept at moving themselves along the value chain as they see the next opportunity. You don't think it's just a window? I mean, clearly you're complementary services at the moment, and everybody can see the benefit of that. But they don't come after you at some stage once they've established Apple Pay? It's
hard to, I think it'd be hard to see Apple Pay dipping into the actual acquiring of the transaction. There's a lot of components that differentiate groups like ourselves as far as managing the fraud and risk and dealing with chargebacks and fraud to sales ratios. We're valuable to the merchant because we bring 150 different payment types. Apple Pay really brings a credit card transaction, but we have alternative payments around the world So there's a real value add that I don't think Apple Pay will ever get into.
Joel, I'm just looking at your CV. It is incredibly impressive. I mean, a whole host of companies which you've been involved in. Then I'm listening to what you said right at the first answer about you don't want to just go for the commoditized product market. You know, there's a lot of people out there doing it. And it seems to me that all technology eventually becomes commoditized as well. So given the fact that you've been at so many companies, is the trick for you with Optimal and the other companies you've been at to get it to scale, get it to a position where you're offering a unique product, and then get taken out by a bigger player eventually?
It's possible. You know, I think it's hard to build companies with the sole intent of selling them. I think anytime you build something of value that is differentiated, the chances of something along those lines happening is greater. But I think we're just intent on maintaining very significant growth. I think 2011 we did $17.5 million of EBITDA and profit. Next year we're looking at $240 million of profit. So just building value. If something good happens down the line, great. But just as far as differentiation, the lines that are getting blurred between online and brick and mortar. So if I go, say, to McDonald's as an example, and before I get to McDonald's, and this doesn't necessarily exist yet, I have a McDonald's app where I order my Big Mac and my French fry and my milkshake. I pay for it on my phone, and then I go sit down at a table and have it delivered to my table, or pick up my bag that's waiting for me. Is that a brick and mortar transaction? Is that an online transaction?
It's a very hopeful transaction, because you know if you're in a drive-through, you're always going to get put in bay 2 and have to wait for your quarter pounder with cheese. It's so annoying.
Queuing will end, and if we can add that type of value to merchants, then we will be relevant.
Why can't McDonald's do that themselves?
Well, look, there's a lot of technology involved, and when you start talking about detailed applications, McDonald's, you know, one of the major marketing companies in the world, they don't know anything about any of their customers. You can eat a Big Mac three times a day. You know,
I would love to. I think that's probably been my downfall.
I want to know if the China market has been put in bay 2 for a lot of developers and people in the industry, because the growth story has been there, but there seems to be key risks around execution now. So how cautious are you about the China story?
Well, you know what? You know, we have a decent chunk of our business out of China. It's obviously a big market for us, but you know, for us, it's been business as usual. Obviously, there's a lot of turbulence in the market.
Where could the risks come from, though, in China, as you've been, you know, nutting this out around the boardroom? Where could the problems arise for you in China?
Well, look, there's always risks of fraud and then the typical risks in our industry. I think the currency risks are difficult for companies like ourselves that are processing transactions in a local currency that's devaluing. Has some potential risk on revenues. We haven't seen that as of yet, but that would be something that I think we would be cognizant of.
Joel Leonoff, thank you for joining us today, President and CEO of Optimal Payments.